Sri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavat Gita, Chapter 5. Karma Sanyasa Yoga. Arjuna said, Krishna, you extol Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, and then the yoga of action. Pray tell me which of the two is decidedly conducive to my good. Sri Bhagavan said, the yoga of knowledge and the yoga of action both lead to supreme bliss. Of the two, however, the yoga of action, being easier of practice, is superior to the yoga of knowledge. The karma yogi who neither hates nor desires should ever be considered a renouncer. For Arjuna, he who is free from the pairs of opposites is easily freed from bondage. It is the ignorant, not the wise, who say that Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga lead to divergent results. For one who is firmly established in either gets the fruit of both, which is the same, namely God realization. The supreme state which is reached by the Sankhya Yogi is attained also by the Karma Yogi. Therefore, he alone who sees Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga as identical so far as their results go, sees truly. Without Karma Yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, or renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of the mind, senses and body, is difficult to accomplish. Whereas the Karma Yogi who keeps his mind fixed on God reaches Brahman in no time, Arjuna. The Karma Yogi who has fully conquered his mind and mastered his senses, whose heart is pure and who has identified himself with the self of all beings, remains untainted even though performing action. The Sankhya Yogi, however, who knows the reality of things, must believe, even though seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating or drinking, walking, sleeping, breathing, speaking, answering the calls of nature, grasping and opening or closing the eyes, that he does nothing, holding that it is the senses that are moving among their objects. He who acts, offering all actions to God and shaking off attachment, remains untouched by sin as the lotus leaf by water. The Karma Yogis perform action only with their senses, mind, intellect and body as well, without the feeling of mind in respect of them and shaking off attachment, simply for the sake of self-purification. Offering the fruit of actions to God, the Karma Yogi attains everlasting peace in the shape of God realization. Whereas he who works with a selfish motive, being attached to the fruit of actions through desire, gets tied down. The self-controlled Sankhya Yogi, doing nothing himself and getting nothing done by others, rests happily in God, the embodiment of truth, knowledge and bliss, mentally neglecting all actions to the mansion of 9 gates, the body with 9 openings. God determines not the doership, nor the doings of men, nor even their contact with the fruit of actions, but it is nature alone that functions. The omnipresent God does not partake the virtue or sin of anyone. Knowledge is enveloped with ignorance. Hence, it is that beings are constantly falling a prey to delusion. In the case, however, of those who said ignorance has been destroyed by true knowledge of God, that wisdom shining like the sun reveals the Supreme. Those whose mind and intellect are wholly merged in Him, who remain constantly established in identity with Him and have finally become one with Him, their sins being wiped out by wisdom, reach the supreme goal whence there is no return. The wise look with equanimity on all, whether it be a Brahmana endowed with learning and culture, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a pariah too. Even here is the mortal plane conquered by those whose mind is established in unity. Since the Absolute is untouched by the evil and is the same to all, hence they are established in the eternal. He who with the reason firm and free from doubt rejoices not on obtaining what is pleasant and does not feel perturbed on meeting with the unpleasant, that knower of Brahma lives eternally in identity with Brahma. He whose mind remains unattached to sense objects derives through meditation the sattvic joy which dwells in the mind. Then that yogi, having completely identified himself through meditation with Brahma, enjoys eternal bliss. The pleasures which are born of sense contacts are verily a source of suffering only, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly minded people. They have a beginning and an end. They come and go. Arjuna, it is for this reason that a wise man does not indulge in them. He alone who is able to withstand in this very life before casting off his body the urges of lust and anger is a yogi, and he alone is a happy man. He who is happy within himself enjoys within himself the delight of the soul, and even so is illumined by the inner light, that is the light of soul. Such a yogi, identified with Brahman, attains Brahman, who is all peace. The seers whose sins have been purged, whose doubts have been dispelled by knowledge, whose disciplined mind is firmly established in God, and who are devoted to the welfare of all beings, attain Brahman, who is all peace. To those wise men who are free from lust and anger, who have subdued their mind and have realized God, Brahman, the abode of eternal peace, is present all round. Shutting out all thoughts of external enjoyments, with the gaze fixed on the space between the eyebrows, having regulated the prana and the apana, breaths flowing within the nostrils, he who has brought his senses, mind and intellect under control, such a contemplative soul, intent on liberation and free from desire, fear and anger, is ever liberated. Having known me in reality as the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme Lord of all the worlds, and the selfless friend of all beings, my devotee attains peace. Thus, in the Upanishad sung by the Lord, the science of Brahma, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna ends the 5th chapter entitled The Yoga of Action and Knowledge. The glories of 5th chapter of Bhagavat Gita from the Padma Purana. Lord Vishnu said, "Now I will describe to you the unlimited glories of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Listen very carefully. In the state of Madhra, there is a town of the name Purukutsapur. There lived a Brahmana by the name of Pingala. During his childhood, he was trained in various Brahmanical activities and was taught the Vedas. But he had no interest in his studies. When he reached his youth, he gave up his Brahmanical pursuits and started to learn how to play instruments as well as singing and dancing. Slowly, he became so famous in this field that the king himself invited him to live in the palace. While he was living there, he slowly degraded more and more into sinful life. He started to enjoy with other men's wives and engage in all kinds of sinful activities and intoxication. He became so proud of his position and he gained more and more intimacy with the king. He especially enjoyed criticizing others to the king in private. Pingala had a wife whose name was Arjuna, who was born in a low-class family. She was very lusty and enjoyed relationships with many other men. When her husband found out about her activities, she decided to kill him. Late one night, she chopped off his head and buried his body in the garden. After his death, Pingala fell into the deepest regions of hell, and after having suffered there for a long time, he took birth as a vulture. Aruna, after freely enjoying with many men, contracted venereal disease, and her youthful body very soon became ugly and unattractive. When she died, she went on to hell, and after having suffered for a long time there, she attained the body of a female parrot. One day, that parrot was searching here and there for food. In the meantime, the vulture, who is in his previous life had been Pingala, saw the female parrot, and remembering his lost life and understanding that this parrot had been his wife, he attacked her with his sharp beaks. The parrot fell down into the water contained in a human skull and drowned. Just then, a hunter came and shot the vulture with an arrow. The vulture too fell, and his head dropped into the water of that skull, and he drowned. Then the messengers of Yamaraja came and took them to the abode of death. At that time, they became very afraid, remembering their past sinful lives. When they came in front of Yamaraja, he told them, "You are now free of all sins and you may go to Vaikuntha." When Pingala and Aruna heard this, they inquired from Yamaraja how two sinful persons such as they had attained the right to go to the Vaikuntha. Yamaraja replied, "On the banks of river Ganga lived a great devotee of Lord Vishnu by the name of Vat. He was free from lust and greed. Daily he recited the 5th chapter of Bhagavat Gita, and when Vat gave up his body, he went straight to Vaikuntha. Due to his reciting the 5th chapter of Bhagavat Gita daily, his body became completely pure. And because of your coming in contact with the skull of the body of that devotee, you both have attained Vaikuntha. This is the glory of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita." Lord Vishnu said, "My dear Lakshmi," when they both heard the glories of Bhagavad Gita from Yamaraja, they became very happy and sat down in the flower airplane which had come to take them to Vaikuntha. Anyone who hears the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, even the most sinful, will attain Vaikuntha.